The music thumped through the rooftop lounge, where champagne cost more than rent and laughter smelled like expensive cologne. Lila Carter stood near the bar, holding a silver tray like a shield. Her ponytail was tight, her smile tighter. The waitstaff uniform clung to her like an apology. "Come on," a man in a navy suit said, smirking over his glass. "You call that rhythm?" That man was Ashton Vale, the kind of millionaire who thought his reflection was a public service. The youngest hotel tycoon in New York, heir to the Vale fortune, and someone who had once bought a yacht simply because a rival said he couldn't. He leaned back in his chair, dark eyes glinting with that mixture of charm and arrogance money tends to buy. "I dare you," he said, pointing lazily at Lila. "Dance. Right here. Show me what you've got." The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. For a moment Lila froze. She felt every eye in the room turn toward her. The guests in glittering gowns, the investors, the bored socialites. They looked at her like she was decoration, like she didn't belong. Then she smiled, slow, dangerous. "Oh, you really don't want that, sir?" she said softly. Ashton's grin widened. "No, I insist." The DJ must have sensed something brewing, because a beat dropped out of nowhere. A deep, pulsing rhythm filled the room. Lila set her tray down on the counter. Her heart hammered. She took one deep breath. Then she moved. Every eye followed her. The crowd that had been laughing a second ago went silent. She didn't dance for them or for Ashton, but for herself. Her body moved like it remembered freedom. Sharp turns, smooth waves, every step in time. Gasps turned into cheers. Someone started clapping. The DJ caught the rhythm and blended it perfectly to her movement, like the music belonged to her. Even the city lights beyond the glass seemed to flicker in sync. And Ashton? His smirk was gone. The confident grin that made everyone else swoon disappeared. He just stood there, stunned, as the waitress he'd tried to embarrass turned his party into her stage. When the music stopped, silence hung for half a second. Then applause exploded through the room. "Tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing the reach. And if this story has you hooked, hit subscribe now. A new one's coming tomorrow, so don't miss it." Before we begin, tell us in the comments, have you ever met someone who thought they were too good for you until life humbled them? And at the end of the story, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Enjoy. Ashton clapped too, slow and deliberate. "Well," he said, his voice low, half amused, half impressed. "Remind me never to underestimate the help again." Lila picked up her tray, chin high. "You just learned that lesson the hard way." And she walked off, leaving him speechless. Later that night, in the narrow staff hallway behind the ballroom, Lila couldn't stop grinning. Her coworker Maya burst out laughing. "You actually did it. You danced in front of Ashton freaking Vale." Lila shrugged, still catching her breath. "I didn't do it for him. I just got tired of being invisible." But deep down, she couldn't ignore the way he had looked at her. Not with pity or mockery, but surprise. Like she had cracked something open in his perfect little world. Still, she told herself billionaires don't notice girls like her. By tomorrow, he'd forget she existed. She hoped so, because the last thing she needed was more drama. Across the city, in a glass-walled penthouse that touched the clouds, Ashton Vale poured himself another drink and stared at the skyline. He'd met thousands of people, powerful, polished, predictable. But her? The waitress who danced like she owned the night? She was impossible to forget. He opened his laptop, typed a few words, and pulled up the catering company's roster from the gala. When he saw her name, Lila Carter, something inside him shifted. He didn't know why he cared. Maybe because for the first time in a long time, someone had told him no and meant it. The next morning, Lila's phone buzzed. Her manager wanted to see her. She assumed the worst. "Is this about last night?" she asked nervously. The manager sighed, sliding an envelope across the counter. "You made quite an impression." "Oh no," she muttered. "I'm fired, aren't I?" He shook his head. "Not exactly. Mr. Ashton Vale himself called. He wants you to work a private event tonight, at his hotel." Lila's mouth fell open. "He what?" Her manager shrugged. Apparently, he insisted. Her first instinct was to say no. The man had embarrassed her once already. She wasn't giving him another chance. But her rent was due and extra hours meant extra pay. Against her better judgment, she agreed. All day, she told herself it meant nothing. She'd show up, do her job, ignore him and leave. But no matter how many times she tried to convince herself, that voice in her head wouldn't quiet down. What if it wasn't just about work? What if he had another reason? That night, she stepped into the Vale Grand Hotel ballroom. Gold chandeliers glowed overhead. Men in tuxedos talked business over champagne. She spotted Ashton near the center of the crowd, surrounded by executives and cameras. When he saw her, the noise of the room seemed to fade. He smiled, not like before, not cocky, but soft. "Miss Carter," he said, "I was hoping you'd accept my invitation." She crossed her arms. "You didn't really give me a choice." "Good," he said, his voice calm, measured. "I hate rejection." She almost laughed. "You need another dance partner?" "Not tonight," he said, his eyes glinting. Then he turned to the crowd and took the microphone from the bandstand. The room quieted instantly. Reporters raised their phones. Lila stood frozen in place. "Last night," Ashton began, his voice carrying easily, "someone reminded me that arrogance is the enemy of grace. So tonight, I'm making a promise. One that will change everything about Vale Properties." Whispers broke out among the executives. Lila frowned, confused. What was he doing? Ashton's next words hit like a thunderclap. "Effective immediately, I'm stepping down as CEO." The crowd erupted. Gasps, shouts, flashes of light as cameras fired. Lila's tray wobbled in her hands. She stared at him, completely lost. Ashton walked toward her through the chaos, his expression unreadable. When he reached her, he leaned in just enough for only her to hear. "See what you started, Miss Carter?" he murmured. Her heart thudded. "What are you talking about?" He smiled faintly, the corners of his mouth curving with something like mischief, or maybe something deeper. "You'll find out soon enough." Lila didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ashton Vale stepping down in front of hundreds of people, his eyes locked on hers. What did that even mean? How could a waitress make a billionaire give up his empire? By morning, her phone was blowing up. Clips of the announcement were everywhere: online news, social media, gossip blogs. The headlines were wild. "Billionaire steps down after rooftop scandal." Who is the mystery waitress who humbled Ashton Vale? Her stomach dropped. They were talking about her. She scrolled through the comments, face burning. Some people called her inspiring. Others called her a gold digger. Someone even started a hashtag the waitress who danced. "Oh no," she muttered, burying her face in her pillow. "I'm a meme." Maya, her roommate, barged into the room, waving her phone. "Girl, you're famous. Half the internet wants to know who you are. Some people think you're secretly a professional dancer hired to embarrass him." Lila groaned. "I wish I were that clever." But part of her couldn't stop replaying his voice, soft and calm. "You'll find out soon enough." Find out what? By noon, the catering company called. Her boss sounded nervous. "Lila, Mr. Vale's assistant wants to meet you. In person." She froze. "You're kidding." "I wish I were," he said. "They sent a car for you. It's waiting outside." A black sedan idled at the curb when she stepped outside her apartment building. The driver opened the door without a word. Everything about it felt too polished, too serious. Inside the car, the city blurred past. Lila's thoughts raced faster. Why was she doing this? Why hadn't she said no? When the car stopped, she realized they weren't at a hotel. They were at a towering glass building overlooking Central Park, the Vale Group headquarters. Her pulse quickened as she stepped out. She had no idea what she was walking into. Inside, a tall woman in a sleek gray suit greeted her. "Miss Carter. I'm Elise, Mr. Vale's executive assistant. Thank you for coming." "Not like I had much of a choice," Lila muttered. Elise smiled politely, clearly used to billionaires and their chaos. "Right this way." The elevator ride was silent except for the hum of expensive machinery. When the doors opened, Lila found herself in a minimalist office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a skyline that looked painted. Ashton stood by the window, hands in his pockets. He turned when he heard her. "Miss Carter," he said warmly. "You're right on time." Lila folded her arms. "You know, most people text before they change someone's entire life." He smiled faintly. "I don't like texting. You don't like a lot of things, I'm guessing." "On the contrary," he said, walking closer. "I liked your dancing very much." She rolled her eyes. "Please don't tell me you called me here to flirt. I have a job, and it doesn't involve stroking your ego." He chuckled, a low, genuine sound that surprised her. "Actually, I called you here to offer you one." Her breath caught. "A job?" "Yes," he said simply. "I've stepped down as CEO, but I'm launching something new. A charity foundation focused on rebuilding communities affected by foreclosure. I want you to help me run it." Lila blinked. "What? Why me?" He studied her, eyes calm but intent. "Because you're honest. You don't pretend. You challenged me when everyone else laughed at my jokes. And last night, you reminded me that power means nothing if you use it to make people feel small." Lila stared at him, unsure whether to be touched or suspicious. "This feels like a trap." He smiled again, softer now. "Maybe it is, but a good one." She wanted to laugh, but the seriousness in his tone stopped her. "You don't even know me. That's what makes it interesting," he said. "Say yes, and I'll pay triple what you make now. Say no, and I'll stop bothering you." She hesitated. Every logical part of her said walk away, but curiosity and rent whispered otherwise. She sighed. "Fine, I'll help, but I'm not wearing a fancy uniform or dancing at your events again." His grin was instant. "Deal." He extended his hand. She shook it, expecting it to feel cold. Didn't. His grip was warm, firm, real. As she left the office, Elise gave her a knowing look. "Be careful," the assistant said quietly. "Mr. Vale doesn't let people close easily. And when he does, it usually means trouble." That night, Lila sat in her apartment staring at the contract he'd sent. It felt surreal. One day she was a waitress. The next she was about to work alongside a billionaire who had practically declared war on his own ego. She signed it. The next morning, she stepped into the Vale Foundation's temporary office. A smaller floor in the same building, still being set up. Boxes everywhere. No luxury this time, just raw beginnings. Ashton was already there, sleeves rolled up, helping an assistant unpack. When he saw her, his expression lit up. "Welcome to the chaos," he said. She smirked. "You sure you know what you're doing?" "Not even a little," he admitted. "But it's kind of freeing." They worked for hours, arranging files, calling vendors, trying to look productive. It was awkward at first, the silence, the glances. But then came small talk, jokes, little sparks of humor. At one point, Lila caught him struggling with a printer cable and couldn't help laughing. "Wow! The mighty billionaire defeated by office equipment." He laughed too. "Go ahead, enjoy it. I'm sure the tabloids will too." By afternoon, something had shifted. The tension between them wasn't just professional. It hummed quietly beneath every word, every look. But the peace didn't last. As they finished for the day, Ashton's phone buzzed. He answered, and his expression changed instantly. Cold, focused. He hung up and turned to her. "I need you to stay out of the media for a while." Lila frowned. "What are you talking about?" "There's a leak," he said quietly. "Someone's spinning last night's story, claiming I stepped down because of a scandal. And they're using your name." Her heart stopped. "What kind of scandal?" He hesitated. "The kind that could ruin both of us if we don't handle it right." Lila felt her knees weaken. "You mean they think," he nodded grimly, "that you and I are having an affair?" The room felt suddenly smaller. The city lights flickered beyond the windows, and for the first time, she saw worry in his eyes. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You didn't sign up for this. But if you stay with me in this project, I promise I'll protect you." She looked at him, torn between disbelief and the strange trust that had begun to form. "Protect me?" she whispered. "From who?" His jaw tightened. "From people who want to destroy me. And now, thanks to last night, they'll come after you too." Her stomach dropped. What did I get myself into? He looked at her with something like regret. A world that doesn't forgive mistakes. She stared at him, realizing this wasn't just about pride or business anymore. There was something deeper, something he wasn't telling her. Before she could ask, Elise appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Vale, they're here?" Ashton's expression hardened. "Who?" "Reporters. And your father's legal team." He took a deep breath. "Of course." He turned to Lila. "Whatever happens next, don't say a word. Please." She nodded, heart racing. As the doors opened and voices filled the hallway, she caught one last glimpse of Ashton's face. Calm, controlled. But behind that mask, something was cracking. And for the first time, she realized his downfall might have already begun. The conference room was full of suits. Cameras flashed outside the glass doors. Reporters waited like vultures in the lobby, and Ashton Vale sat at the head of the long table, looking like he'd been carved from ice. Lila stood behind him, clutching a folder she didn't understand and wishing she were anywhere else. Across from Ashton sat a man with gray hair and eyes that looked as if they had never smiled. His father, Richard Vale, the real power behind the Vale Empire. Richard's voice was calm but sharp enough to cut. "You embarrassed the family. The board wants answers. You step down publicly, announce a mysterious foundation, and then the internet explodes with rumors that you've been sleeping with one of your employees." Lila's face went red. Ashton didn't flinch. "Those rumors are lies," he said evenly. "And my decision to step down was mine alone." Richard's gaze flicked toward Lila, assessing her like an object. "This is the waitress, I assume?" Lila stiffened. "My name's Lila Carter." Richard ignored her. "You always had a weakness for distractions, son. But this could destroy everything." Ashton leaned forward, his tone quiet but deadly. "Maybe everything deserves to be destroyed." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Richard's jaw tightened. "You've lost your mind." "Maybe I finally found it." Lila watched, heart pounding. She didn't understand what was happening, but she felt the tension between father and son like static in the air. Richard stood abruptly. "The foundation ends today. You're reinstated as CEO. I've already spoken to the board." "No," Ashton said. Richard froze. "No." Ashton's eyes burned with something fierce. "You can run the company, but you don't control me anymore." Richard laughed once, humorless. "Then you're finished. And that girl, she'll go down with you." He walked out, leaving the air colder than before. When the door closed, Lila exhaled shakily. "So that's your dad." Ashton nodded, still staring at the door. "Unfortunately." She hesitated. What did he mean about destroying everything? He rubbed a hand over his face, suddenly looking older. "My father built his empire by crushing people who couldn't fight back. Families, small businesses, tenants. I stayed because I thought I could fix it from the inside. But I was becoming just like him." "And last night?" she asked softly. He looked at her then, eyes tired but sincere. "You reminded me what decency looks like." Lila didn't know what to say. For a man like him to admit that felt heavier than any apology. The next few days were chaos. Reporters camped outside the building. Gossip shows ran stories about the Billionaire and the Waitress. Lila couldn't even walk to the corner store without seeing her own face on a phone screen. Ashton's PR team tried to spin it, but every attempt backfired. The narrative was too juicy. One night, after yet another false headline went viral, Lila stormed into Ashton's office. "I can't do this anymore," she said, slamming the door behind her. "They're tearing me apart online." He looked up from his desk, eyes dark with exhaustion. "I know. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't stop people from calling me names. I didn't ask for this." He stood, voice calm but firm. "Do you think I did?" They stared at each other across the room. The silence buzzed with anger, fear, something unspoken. Then he sighed and stepped closer. You're right. You didn't ask for this. I should have protected you better. Her voice softened. Why didn't you tell me your father would come after us? Because I thought I could handle him. He gave a bitter laugh. Turns out I was wrong. She looked at him, searching his face. What are you going to do? I'm going to fight back, he said quietly. But not the way he expects. The next morning, Ashton held a press conference. Not to deny the rumors, but to twist them. He announced a new partnership between Vale Properties and the Vale Foundation, positioning the story as a deliberate publicity strategy to draw attention to social issues. It was risky, reckless, brilliant. The headlines flipped overnight. The Billionaire and the Waitress became a symbol, not of scandal but of transformation. Lila couldn't believe it. You just lied to the entire country, she said afterward. He shrugged. Technically, I redirected the truth. She tried not to laugh, but she did anyway. You're impossible. And yet, he said, smiling faintly, you're still here. That night, they celebrated in the nearly empty office. The city glowed beneath them, neon and alive. For the record, Lila said, holding up a paper cup of cheap champagne, this doesn't mean I like you. He raised his own cup. Of course not. You just tolerate me professionally. Barely. They clinked cups. For the first time in weeks, she felt light again. But the moment didn't last. Ashton's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, and his expression turned to stone. What is it? Lila asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he handed her the phone. It was an email. One line. You can't hide forever. The truth always leaks. There was a photo attached, grainy, but unmistakable. It showed Ashton and a younger man, standing in front of a construction site, shaking hands with a politician. Lila frowned. Who's that? Ashton's jaw tightened. My father's biggest ally. The man behind half our company's deals. And, his eyes darkened. He's under federal investigation. If this photo gets out, they'll think I was involved. Her heart dropped. Were you? He looked at her, guilt flickering behind his calm mask. Not intentionally, but the money trail might say otherwise. Lila sank into a chair. Oh no, this is what my father meant, Ashton said quietly. He's pulling the strings. If I don't come back to the company, he'll bury me with this. And me too, she realized. Because I work with you. He nodded. I'm sorry, Lila. She stood, trembling with anger. You should have told me from the start. I didn't want to drag you into this. Well, too late, she snapped. You already did. She grabbed her bag and stormed toward the door. Ashton called after her. Lila, wait. But she didn't. She didn't stop until she was out on the street, breathing in the cold night air. Her phone buzzed. Dozens of notifications. Messages. A new wave of headlines. The first one made her blood run cold. Breaking. Leaked photo links Ashton Vale an unnamed female aide to a legal development project. Unnamed. But the photo clearly showed her standing beside him at the ribbon-cutting weeks earlier. The screen blurred as tears welled in her eyes. She hadn't done anything wrong, but the world wouldn't care. Somewhere in his office, Ashton Vale was staring at the same headline, realizing that the person he had tried to protect might pay the price for his past. And as the lights of the city flickered outside, he made a decision that would change everything. He reached for his phone and whispered to himself, if I can't save myself, I'll save her. The rain came hard that night, hammering against the glass walls of Ashton's penthouse. The city looked like a watercolor painting, blurred and trembling in the storm. He stood alone, watching lightning split the skyline, phone still in his hand. The email burned in his mind, every word a threat. He had two options. Obey his father and walk back into the gilded cage, or fight and risk losing everything, including Lila. He set the phone down, grabbed his jacket, and walked out. Across town, Lila sat in her small apartment, the one she hadn't had time to decorate because her life had spun into chaos. She stared at the headline again and again, hoping it would disappear. Didn't. Every refresh brought new comments, new lies, new insults. Her mom had called earlier, worried sick. Lila had lied and said everything was fine. It wasn't. When the knock came, she almost didn't answer. But something told her who it was before she even opened the door. Ashton stood there, soaked from the rain, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes raw and determined. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I know," he said quietly. "But I need to talk to you." She crossed her arms. "You mean lie to me again?" He flinched. "I deserve that. But please, let me explain." She hesitated, then stepped aside. He walked in, dripping water onto the floor. "This isn't just about me," he said. "That photo, it's part of something bigger. My father's using it to cover his own tracks. He funneled millions through that project. If the feds dig, he'll make it look like I was the one who signed off. And they'll believe him," Lila said, "because he's got the power." "Exactly." He met her eyes. "But if I go back, play along, he'll stop. He'll clear your name. Maybe even bury the story completely." She stared at him, heart pounding. "So you'd let him win? If it keeps you safe, yes." Lila shook her head. "That's not protection, Ashton. That's surrender." He took a step closer, voice low. "You don't understand what he's capable of. Then make me understand." For a long moment he said nothing. Then, quietly, he told her everything. How his father built the company by bribing officials. How every philanthropy project was a cover for something darker. How Ashton himself had signed documents without realizing what they were funding. When he finished, Lila just stared at him. "You think you're protecting me, but you're protecting the wrong person. Him. I don't know another way." "Yes, you do," she said. "You expose him." Ashton laughed bitterly. "And take myself down in the process? Maybe. But at least it's honest." He looked at her like she'd just said something he couldn't process. Honest. The word sounded foreign to him. Then his phone buzzed again. Another email. This time, it wasn't from his father, it was from an anonymous address. The subject line read, "I know what he did. Meet me." The message included an address, a small cafe downtown. No name, no signature. Lila leaned over his shoulder. "You're not actually going, are you?" He hesitated. "If there's even a chance someone can help me prove what my father's done. You don't even know who that is." He gave her a small, crooked smile. "That's half my life, Lila. Doing things I shouldn't for people I don't trust." "Yeah, and look where it got you," she muttered. He turned to leave. "Stay here, please. I'll handle this." But she followed him anyway. The cafe was nearly empty when they arrived. The only light came from a flickering neon sign and a single bulb over the counter. A man sat in the corner, face shadowed by a hood. Ashton approached carefully. "You sent the message?" The man nodded and slid a folder across the table. "Everything you need to destroy your father. Bank statements, transfers, even copies of the bribe receipts." Ashton didn't move. "Why help me?" The man's voice was low. "Because I used to work for him. Until he ruined my life." Lila stood beside Ashton, tense but silent. Ashton opened the folder. His eyes widened as he scanned the pages. "If this is real." "It is," the man said. "But you didn't get it from me." Before Ashton could reply, a flash of light filled the room. Camera flashes, followed by the sound of shouting. Reporters burst through the door, snapping photos, shouting his name. "Ashton Vale. Is it true you're meeting with whistleblowers to blackmail your father?" Lila gasped. It was a setup. Ashton dropped the folder, realization hitting hard. The man in the hood slipped out through a side door, disappearing into the storm. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Lila grabbed Ashton's arm. "We have to go." They ran out the back exit, through puddles and alleyways, hearts pounding. The city lights spun around them, red and blue reflections on wet concrete. When they finally stopped, Ashton leaned against a wall, chest heaving. He knew. My father knew exactly where I'd be. Lila looked up at him, soaked and furious. "Then you need to stop playing defense." He met her gaze. "You want me to fight him? I want you to stop being afraid of him." He stared at her, something sparking in his eyes. The same fire she saw the night he dared her to dance. "You're right," he said softly. "It's time I stopped being his shadow." Before she could respond, a car screeched to a halt at the end of the alley. Headlights blinded them. A black SUV. Lila grabbed his hand. "Run!" They sprinted again, cutting through a narrow passage, splashing through puddles. A door loomed ahead, the back of an old theater. Ashton shoved it open, pulling her inside. The space was dark, dusty, filled with old stage props and broken lights. They hid behind a curtain, breathless. Footsteps echoed outside. Men's voices. Searching. Lila whispered, "How far does your father's reach go?" "Farther than I ever wanted to know," Ashton said. The voices faded. They waited in silence. Finally, Lila let out a shaky breath. "You okay?" He gave a small, tired laugh. "Define okay." She smiled despite herself. "Still making jokes. That's something." He looked at her, expression softening. "You didn't have to come." "Yeah, well, you're bad at staying out of trouble." For a moment, the world outside didn't exist. Just the sound of rain dripping through the ceiling, the faint scent of dust and old velvet. Then Ashton's phone buzzed again. One new message. This one from a number he didn't recognize. "You can't run from family, son. Come home before I decide she's the one who pays." Lila saw the text and froze. He looked at her, his face pale. "He knows where you are." Before she could react, the power cut out. Total darkness. Lila whispered, "Ashton?" He reached for her hand, found it, held tight. "We're getting out of here." A faint light glowed from the stage, an emergency exit sign flickering red. They moved toward it quietly, step by step. But when they reached the door, a shadow blocked the way. A man in a black suit stood there, umbrella in hand, smiling coldly. "Your father sends his regards," he said. The man with the umbrella didn't flinch as the lightning lit up his face. He was calm, polite, terrifying. Water dripped from his sleeves, and behind him, two more men stood waiting, motionless. Ashton took a slow step forward, his hand tightening around Lila's. "Tell my father if he wants me, he can come himself." The man smiled faintly. "He doesn't get his shoes wet." Lila felt Ashton's grip shift. She knew that tone meant danger. The man tilted his head, studying them. "This isn't a threat, Mr. Vale. It's a reminder. You've gone too far." "Funny," Ashton said, his voice low. "That's exactly what my father used to say before I made my first billion." He moved fast. One quick shove, and the emergency door slammed open. Lila bolted through as Ashton pushed the man aside. Shouts filled the air, boots pounding behind them. They burst into the rain again, running across the empty street. A flash of headlights blinded them as a taxi swerved to a stop. Ashton threw open the door, yelled, "Drive!" and they shot off into the storm. Lila sat gasping, drenched, staring out the window. "He sent people after you. After us." "He's desperate," Ashton said between breaths. "If he can't control me, he'll destroy me." "Then we need proof before he destroys you," she said. He met her eyes. "We have proof." "That folder is probably gone," she interrupted. "He planted that guy to lure you out. You think he didn't have a cleanup team waiting?" He cursed under his breath. The driver glanced in the mirror nervously. "You two in trouble?" Lila forced a smile. "Only the usual billionaire drama." The driver laughed uncertainly and kept going. They got out near the waterfront. The rain had eased, but the air was thick with the smell of sea salt and gasoline. Old warehouses lined the pier, their windows glowing faintly. Ashton led her toward one, unlocking a side door with a small key. "You own this place?" she asked. He nodded. "Safe house. Used to be a private studio for prototypes. Now it's just storage, and somewhere my father's people can't trace immediately." Inside, the space was vast and quiet, filled with covered cars, tools, and forgotten tech. Lila pulled off her wet jacket and wrapped herself in an old blanket. "Ashton," she said softly, How far are you willing to go? He looked out the window at the black water. Farther than him. She stepped closer. You don't have to become him to beat him. He didn't answer right away. The wind rattled the windows, and his reflection looked hollow in the glass. Finally, he turned. There's a drive, hidden in my office at Vale Tower. It's got everything: contracts, offshore accounts, signed deals. Enough to end him. Lila blinked. Then why didn't you use it already? Because I'd go down too. She folded her arms. You can rebuild money. You can't rebuild your soul. That hit him harder than she realized. After a long silence, he said, We'll need help getting inside the tower. You mean break in? Technically, it's still my building. She smiled faintly. You're insane. Probably. He looked at her. But I'm glad you're here anyway. That night, they slept in shifts. The sound of waves outside was constant, steady, almost comforting. Lila dreamed of spotlights and music. The night they met, when he dared her to dance. She had thought he was arrogant then, but now she saw it differently. Maybe arrogance was the armor rich men wore when they were terrified of being human. When she woke, Ashton was gone. Panic hit instantly. She grabbed her phone, no messages. Then she saw it, a note on the workbench. Didn't want to drag you into the tower. If I'm not back by morning, don't look for me. She cursed under her breath and ran out into the fog. By the time she reached Vale Tower, dawn was breaking. The skyscraper gleamed gold in the early light. Security vans were parked outside. Something was wrong. She slipped through a side entrance, flashing the badge she still had from when she'd helped at his foundation. Inside, the halls were eerily quiet. When she reached Ashton's office, she froze. The door was cracked open. Voices inside. She crept closer, listening. Richard Vale's voice was calm, smug. You always thought you could play hero, but you were never built for war. Ashton's reply was low and cold. You taught me everything I know about it. Lila peered through the gap. Ashton stood at his desk, face bruised, blood on his collar. His father stood opposite him, perfectly composed, 2 guards behind him. Where's the drive? Richard asked. Gone, Ashton said. Destroyed. Richard smiled faintly. Lying doesn't suit you, son. You'd be surprised what does these days. Richard walked closer, almost tender. You could have had everything. Power, legacy, control. But you threw it away for a waitress. Lila felt a sting of rage at the word. Ashton didn't flinch. I threw it away for freedom. Freedom? Richard laughed. You think you'll find freedom in poverty? I'll find it in honesty. Richard's expression hardened. Then be honest. How much do you think she'll care when she finds out what really happened 5 years ago? Lila frowned. What was he talking about? Ashton said nothing. Richard smirked. You never told her, did you? About the factory fire. About the workers you let take the blame while you signed the insurance payout. Lila's stomach dropped. That's not true, Ashton said quietly. Richard's voice sharpened. I have the papers, Ashton. You signed them, and when the families begged for help, you sent lawyers instead. You're just like me. Lila backed away, her mind spinning. She wanted to run in, to demand answers, but she couldn't move. Inside the room, Ashton spoke again. Maybe I was like you once, but not anymore. Richard sighed, almost pitying. You can't erase blood. It stains. Ashton stepped closer, voice trembling. Then I'll make sure yours stains too. Before anyone could react, he pressed a button on his watch. The massive screen behind him lit up. Bank logs, contracts, emails, all projected live. Every deal, every secret, every bribe. Richard froze. What did you do? Ashton's voice rose. You wanted honesty? Here it is. The whole world gets to see what kind of man Richard Vale really is. From her hiding place, Lila could hear alarms going off. Security shouts echoed through the hall. News alerts buzzed on her phone. The feed was live. Richard lunged for his son, but Ashton held his ground. It's over, he said. Richard's face twisted with fury. You'll destroy the family name. Then let it burn, Ashton said. The guards grabbed him. Lila burst through the door. "Let him go!" Richard turned, surprised. "Ah, the waitress. Come to watch the empire crumble. Come to make sure it does," she said. Ashton struggled against the guards, shouting, "Lila, get out!" But she didn't. She grabbed a metal rod from the desk, slammed it against the fire alarm. The sprinkler system burst to life, drenching everyone. The guards released Ashton in shock. He grabbed her hand, and together they ran, slipping through the chaos. As they reached the stairwell, Richard's voice echoed after them. "You think this is over? You don't even know what you've started." They didn't stop running until they reached the street, soaked, gasping, sirens wailing behind them. Lila turned to him. "You just broadcasted everything your father ever did." Ashton looked at her, rain running down his face. "Then I guess we're both unemployed." She laughed through her tears. "You're insane." He smiled. "And you're extraordinary." Then his phone buzzed one last time. A text, unknown number. "Nice move, but you only exposed half the truth. Call me if you want to finish what you started." Lila frowned. "Who's that?" Ashton stared at the message, heart pounding. "Someone who knows more than they should." The morning after the broadcast, the world exploded. News anchors screamed the name, Richard Vale. Politicians distanced themselves. Stock markets trembled. And somewhere between chaos and justice, Ashton and Lila vanished. They stayed in a small inn on the edge of the city, hiding behind fake names and borrowed clothes. The air smelled like coffee and dust. Lila watched the TV from their room, volume low. Every channel showed Ashton's face. "Former billionaire whistleblower or traitor?" one reporter said. "Sources confirm Vale Properties is under federal investigation." Lila muted the sound. "They're calling you a criminal." Ashton leaned against the window frame, staring at the rain outside. "They're not wrong. I was one." She turned toward him. "No. You were complicit in a broken system. You tried to fix it." He gave a humorless laugh. "That sounds like something my PR team would have said. Then maybe they finally got something right." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world felt like it was collapsing quietly outside that little room. Then Ashton's phone buzzed. The same unknown number. He hesitated before answering. "Who is this?" A voice came through, low, female, confident. "Someone who doesn't like your father either. Meet me at Pier 9. Midnight." The line went dead. Lila frowned. "You're not seriously considering that?" She knew about the files before anyone did. She might be a former insider. She might also be a trap. "Most things in my life are," he said quietly. She exhaled. "Then I'm coming with you." When midnight came, the pier was empty except for the sound of waves and the creak of ropes. Fog rolled off the water, swallowing the city lights. A figure stepped out from behind a shipping crate. A woman in a black coat, sunglasses even at night. Her voice was smooth, practiced. "You made quite the show, Mr. Vale." "Who are you?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Let's just say I used to handle your father's cleanup operations. Until he stopped paying me." Lila's stomach tightened. "You're blackmailing him?" "Call it professional revenge." The woman held up a flash drive. "This has the rest of his offshore network. Politicians, foreign accounts, everything. But I want something in return." Ashton's eyes narrowed. "What?" "My name cleared. You leak this. You make me the whistleblower, not the accomplice." Ashton didn't move. Lila watched his expression shift, calculating, cautious. "Why trust you?" he asked. "Because," she said, smiling faintly, "you don't have a choice." Before he could reply, headlights appeared at the end of the pier. 2 black cars. Engines idling. The woman cursed. "That's not me." Men got out, dressed in suits. Richard Vale's men. Lila grabbed Ashton's arm. "We have to go." But the woman grabbed his other arm. "Take the drive," she hissed, shoving it into his hand. "Run." Gunfire cracked through the air. They dove behind a crate, the wood splintering. Lila's heart slammed against her ribs. Ashton grabbed her hand. "This way." They sprinted down the pier, feet pounding the wet wood, bullets echoing behind them. The woman's voice shouted something, then cut off with a sharp scream. Lila didn't look back. They jumped off the edge, plunging into freezing water. The ocean swallowed them whole. When they surfaced, gasping, the pier was chaos. Sirens, shouts, flashing lights. They swam toward a small fishing boat tied nearby and pulled themselves aboard. Lila collapsed on the deck, shivering. "Remind me why I let you drag me into billionaire wars." Ashton coughed out seawater. "Because you like danger?" She glared at him, but her lips twitched despite herself. He pulled the flash drive from his pocket, dripping wet but intact. "This could finish him. Or finish us," she said. They sailed until dawn, drifting toward the quieter side of the coast. By sunrise, they found refuge in an old lighthouse Ashton once funded for a preservation project. Inside, it was cold and empty, but safe. He set up a small laptop and plugged in the drive. Files popped up, hundreds of documents, financial transfers, names. "This is it," he whispered. "It's everything." Lila watched the screen. "You're not just taking down your father. You're taking down half the elite. Then maybe they'll finally see what kind of monsters they are. Or what kind you used to be," she said softly. He looked at her, hurt flickering in his eyes. "You think I can't change?" "I think you already are," she said. "But you can't fix what's broken by breaking more." He leaned back, exhausted. "Then tell me what I'm supposed to do. Expose the truth, but do it clean. No manipulations, no spin, no PR games. Let the world see it raw." He nodded slowly. "Then we'll do it your way." They spent the next few hours sorting files, building a trail that led straight to Richard Vale. Every secret deal, every bribe, every shell company. Lila handled the organization, Ashton wrote the statement. When the work was done, the sun was rising again. Light poured through the cracked windows, painting gold across their faces. Lila looked at him, smiling faintly. "You're about to lose everything." He smiled back. "Then maybe I'll finally have something real." She laughed softly. "That's the most unbillionaire thing you've ever said." He leaned closer, voice low. "Don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my reputation." For a moment, the world felt quiet again. Just two people on the edge of redemption. Then the laptop beeped. A new message appeared on the screen. No sender, no signature. Just one line. "If you post that drive, she dies." Lila froze. "Who's she?" Ashton's hands trembled. He opened the attached image. His blood ran cold. It was his mother, tied to a chair, eyes wide, in a dark room. A clock in the background showed the current time. Lila gasped. "Oh my God!" He stood, chair clattering behind him. "He's got her." "Ashton, wait." He was already grabbing his coat. "He's using her to stop me." Lila caught his arm. "If you go alone, you'll walk into a trap." "I don't have a choice." "Yes, you do," she said fiercely. "We'll go together." He stared at her, torn between fear and gratitude. Then he nodded once. They left the lighthouse as the storm began to rise again, wind howling across the cliffs. The flash drive stayed in Ashton's pocket, burning like a live wire. Behind them, the waves crashed against the rocks, relentless. Ahead, somewhere in the city, Richard Vale waited, with the one person Ashton still couldn't afford to lose. The storm had swallowed the city whole. Lightning split the sky in violent streaks as Ashton and Lila drove through the flooded streets. The windshield wipers struggled to keep up. Every flash of light revealed another ghostly reflection in the glass. Ashton's face, tight with fury. Lila gripped the dashboard. "You're sure it's him?" "It's his style," Ashton said. "No words, just threats. He's not bluffing." "Then we need a plan." He didn't respond. His jaw flexed, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Ashton, listen to me," she said, voice rising. "Charging in there alone won't save her. You'll die and he'll still win." He exhaled sharply. "You think I care what happens to me?" "Yes," she snapped. "Because I do." The car went silent. The rain filled the space between them. He slowed the car, pulling under an abandoned bridge. The engine idled. For the first time he looked at her, really looked. Her hair was soaked, her hands trembling, eyes full of stubborn fire. "You shouldn't have followed me into this," he said quietly. "You shouldn't have dared me to dance," she shot back. "But here we are." He almost smiled, but the weight of what lay ahead crushed it. He reached into his jacket, pulled out the flash drive, and pressed it into her hand. "If I don't come back, you know what to do." She shook her head. "Don't you dare say that. It's not a choice anymore." He stepped out into the rain before she could argue. The address in the message led him to a mansion on the outskirts of town, the Vale Estate. The place he'd sworn never to return to. It stood like a fortress against the storm, every light blazing. He walked through the gates, soaked and unarmed. The doors opened before he could knock. Richard Vale stood in the grand foyer, older but no less imposing. A man sculpted from arrogance and power. "Son," he said smoothly, "you've made quite the mess." Ashton's voice was steady. "Where is she?" "In the East Wing. Alive, for now." Richard circled him slowly, eyes sharp. "You've embarrassed me, humiliated the family, cost me billions. Do you have any idea what you've done? I exposed the truth. You exposed weakness. I exposed you." Richard smiled faintly. "No, you think you did. But the world will believe what I tell them. It always has." He gestured, and two guards dragged a woman forward. Ashton's mother, pale, frightened, wrists bound. "Let her go," Ashton said, voice breaking. "You want her free?" Richard asked. "Then hand me the drive." "I don't have it." Richard's eyes darkened. "Don't lie to me." "It's gone," Ashton said. "And if anything happens to her, it goes public automatically." Richard froze for half a second, the smallest crack in his composure. "Smart," he said, "but not smart enough." He nodded to the guards. One of them struck Ashton across the face. Blood sprayed against marble. Lila watched from the shadows near the staircase, heart pounding. She'd followed him despite his warning. She clutched her phone tightly, recording every word. Richard stepped closer to Ashton. "You think you've changed? You're still my son. My name. My blood. You'll never escape that." Ashton looked up, eyes blazing. "Then I'll destroy it." Richard raised his hand again, but this time, a voice cut through the air. "Don't move." Lila stepped out, phone raised. The screen glowed with the video streaming live. "You're on camera," she said. "The whole world's watching." Richard turned slowly, fury simmering in his eyes. "You stupid girl." He lunged forward, but Ashton tackled him. They crashed into a glass table, shards exploding across the floor. The guards moved toward Lila. She darted behind a pillar, heart racing. One guard grabbed her arm, then yelped as she slammed her heel into his shin. She broke free, sprinted toward Ashton's mother, and began untying her hands. "Ashton!" she cried. He was pinned beneath his father, struggling for breath. Richard's hands closed around his throat. "You were never strong enough," Richard hissed. Ashton's eyes burned with rage. He grabbed a broken shard of glass and pressed it against his father's hand. Richard roared in pain, releasing him. Ashton rolled away, gasping. Lila helped his mother to her feet. "Come on, we have to go." But Richard, blood dripping down his arm, reached for a pistol from the guard's holster. "You're not going anywhere." He aimed. The gunshot echoed through the hall. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Richard staggered back, shock on his face. The gun slipped from his hand. He looked down, a crimson stain spreading across his chest. Behind him, Ashton's mother stood trembling, the small revolver she'd hidden for years smoking in her grasp. "Enough," she whispered. Richard fell to the marble floor, the sound loud and final. The storm raged outside, wind screaming through the broken glass. Lila helped Ashton up. He stared at his father's body, emotionless. "It's over." His mother shook her head. "No, it's only over if you make it mean something." He turned to Lila, exhausted. "The drive. Do you still have it? She nodded. Safe. Then finish it, his mother said softly. Don't let him win again. They left the mansion as dawn began to break. The city in the distance was waking up, unaware of what had just happened in the house on the hill. By noon, the files were live. Every document, every name, every dollar. The Vale Empire crumbled in hours. The news called Ashton everything. Hero, traitor, whistleblower, fallen heir. But he didn't care anymore. For the first time, he felt free. He and Lila sat by the harbor that evening, watching the sun dip below the water. You did it, she said. He smiled faintly. We did it. She looked at him, eyes soft. So what now? He thought for a moment. I don't know. I spent my whole life chasing power. Maybe it's time I learn how to just live. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Maybe you start by learning how to dance for real. He chuckled. You never let that go, do you? Never. He turned to her, their faces close, the sunset painting gold across the waves. And for the first time since the night they met, the night arrogance collided with grace. Ashton Vale didn't feel untouchable. He felt human. The world moved fast after the fall. Within 24 hours, Ashton Vale went from being the face of a billion-dollar dynasty to a global headline. The heir who exposed his own empire. News vans lined the streets outside the Vale Hotel. Talk shows debated his motives. Some called him a hero. Others called him a spoiled traitor seeking attention. And through it all, Ashton stayed silent. He and Lila had disappeared into the quieter edges of the city, a borrowed apartment above a bakery where the smell of fresh bread masked their exhaustion. Do you ever regret it? Lila asked one morning as sunlight spilled through the dusty blinds. He looked up from the newspaper. Regret what? Telling the truth. He smiled faintly. You don't regret the truth. You just regret what it costs. She studied him for a moment. You lost everything. He folded the paper, setting it aside. No, he said quietly. I lost everyone who only loved my money. That's not the same thing. She reached across the table, brushing his hand. Then what's next? He laughed softly. For the first time in my life, I don't know. But the world wasn't done with Ashton Vale. By afternoon, the door downstairs buzzed. A familiar voice called up the stairwell. Lila? Ashton? It was Maya, Lila's friend from the catering company, breathless and anxious. You two need to see this, she said, waving her phone. They're saying you stole from the Vale Foundation. Millions gone. They're painting you as the villain now. Lila's jaw dropped. What? That's impossible. Ashton frowned, taking the phone. The headline glared back at him in bold. Former heir under investigation. Missing charity funds traced to secret account. He scrolled through the article, disbelief turning to anger. That account isn't mine. They fabricated it, Maya said. They're framing you. Lila felt her stomach twist. Who? Ashton's eyes darkened. There's only one person left with access to Vale's systems. My father's protege, Nathan Crow. The name carried venom. Nathan had been his father's right hand. A man with charm like silk and morals like smoke. Lila crossed her arms. So what do we do? Ashton stood, voice cold. We fight back. Again. That evening, they met with an old friend of Ashton's, Clara Lynn, a tech journalist with a reputation for digging out buried truths. They met in a quiet coffee shop downtown. Clara raised an eyebrow when she saw him. Well, if it isn't the prodigal prince. You look less shiny in person. Compliment taken, Ashton said. I need your help. She sipped her coffee. You already broke the internet once. What could you possibly need now? Someone's framing me for embezzlement. I need proof before they bury me for good. Clara leaned back. You're asking me to go up against what's left of the Vale machine. I'm asking you to expose the truth, Ashton said. Again. She studied him. You're not the same man you used to be. He smirked. I'd hope not. After a long pause, she nodded. Fine. I'll dig. But if I find out you're lying, I'm not. Good, she said, standing. Then I'll be in touch. That night, as rain began to fall again, Ashton and Lila sat by the window of their apartment, the city glowing beneath them. "You could just walk away," she said softly. "Let the world think what it wants." "I can't," he said, "because if I do, they win. And they'll come for you next." Her breath caught. "Me? They already painted me as the villain," he said. "You were part of the story too. They'll twist it, turn you into the girl who ruined a billionaire. It's how they play the game." She turned toward him, fire in her eyes. "Then let's play back." He smiled faintly. "You really don't scare easy, do you?" "Not anymore." 2 days later, Clara called. "You were right," she said through the speaker. "The account isn't yours. The transactions lead to a shell company under Nathan Crow's name. But there's something worse." "What?" Ashton asked. "He's not just framing you. He's buying out the Vale properties with offshore money. He's building his own empire on your family's ashes." Lila's pulse quickened. "So he's taking everything?" "Everything," Clara said. "And he's planning a press conference tomorrow. He'll paint you as the thief and himself as the savior who cleaned up the mess." Ashton's voice was ice. "Then we'll beat him to it." "How?" Clara asked. He glanced at Lila, a plan already forming. "We crash his conference. Live." Lila frowned. "That's insane." "That's perfect." The next day, the ballroom of the Old Vale Hotel filled with flashing cameras and reporters. Nathan Crow stood on stage, handsome, polished, smiling for the world. "Today," he said, "we turn the page on a dark chapter in our company's history. Under my leadership, Vale Enterprises will rise again." Lila and Ashton stood in the back, unnoticed. "Ready?" he whispered. She nodded. "Let's steal the spotlight one more time." As Nathan began taking questions, the big screen behind him flickered. The room murmured. The lights dimmed slightly. Then Clara's voice came through the speakers. "Funny thing about empires built on lies." Every reporter turned. The screen lit up, showing video after video, document after document, each one connecting Nathan Crow to the hidden accounts. Offshore funds, fake charities, illicit transfers. The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed. Nathan's composure cracked for the first time. This is false. False." Ashton's voice cut through the noise as he stepped forward. "Then explain this." He walked to the front, holding up the original flash drive. "Every stolen cent, every fake transaction, all yours." Nathan froze. His mouth opened, but no words came. Security guards moved toward Ashton, but reporters swarmed in, shouting questions, recording everything. Lila stood by the door, heart pounding, watching the man who had tried to destroy them crumble in front of the world. Nathan's empire fell in minutes. By evening, his arrest was headline news. Clara's exposé went viral, and Ashton Vale, once the arrogant heir, was suddenly a reluctant hero again. But he didn't celebrate. As the world talked, he and Lila slipped away from the chaos, walking quietly through the rain-slicked streets. "Feels familiar," she said. "Yeah," he murmured. "But this time we're walking away by choice." She looked at him, searching his face. "Do you ever miss it? The power, the attention?" He shook his head. "Not for a second." She smiled. "Good, because I think you're finally learning to dance." He laughed under his breath. "You really like that line, don't you?" "It's my favorite," she said. They turned a corner, disappearing into the glow of the city. Two people who had lost everything but found something far rarer. Peace, or at least for now. Because just as they rounded the next street, a black car rolled to a slow stop beside them. A tinted window slid down, and a familiar voice said, "Going somewhere, Mr. Vale?" Ashton froze. Lila's smile vanished. It was a voice neither of them expected to hear again. The black car idled beside them, its engine a low growl under the city's night rain. Ashton's hand instinctively went to Lila's arm, pulling her back a step. The tinted window rolled down completely. Inside sat a woman, her hair slicked back, diamond earrings flashing under the streetlights. She smiled faintly, calm, confident, dangerous. "Hello, Ashton," she said. His heart dropped. Victoria. Lila blinked. Who? My ex? Ashton muttered, jaw tightening. Victoria Hale. Lila's chest tightened. She knew that name. Every magazine once called Victoria the Queen of the Valleys. Ashton's former fiancée. The socialite who vanished after his father's downfall. Victoria's voice was smooth, almost gentle. You've been busy, darling. Exposing your family. Destroying your fortune. Dancing with waitresses. Lila stiffened at the word. Ashton met her gaze coolly. What do you want, Victoria? Just to talk. Her eyes flicked toward Lila. Privately. Lila crossed her arms. Not happening. Victoria smirked. You must be the reason he's pretending to be humble. How adorable. Ashton stepped closer to the car, lowering his voice. Say what you came to say. Victoria's smile never wavered. Nathan Crow wasn't acting alone. The air went cold. What do you mean? Ashton asked. He had a partner, she said. Someone with access to your father's files. Someone who knew exactly how to frame you. And that person isn't in jail. Lila frowned. You're lying. Victoria's eyes glittered. Am I? You think I'd crawl out of hiding just to scare you? She opened her purse, tossed a small flash drive into Ashton's hand. There's your proof. Check it. Then you'll understand why you can't trust anyone. Not even the people beside you. The car door shut. The tires splashed through puddles, and the car vanished into the mist. Lila stared at the flash drive. Are you really going to believe her? I don't believe her, Ashton said. But I'll still check. Back at the apartment, he plugged the drive into his laptop. Files appeared instantly, security footage, audio recordings, transaction logs. Lila leaned over his shoulder. What are we looking for? Something fake, he said. Something that. He stopped. On the screen, a video thumbnail loaded. It showed the night Nathan framed him, the fake transaction being uploaded. And standing behind the computer in the footage was Maya. Lila's blood ran cold. No, that's not possible. Ashton clicked play. The video was grainy but clear enough. Maya at a Vail office terminal, inserting a flash drive identical to Nathan's. Her expression calm, focused. No, Lila whispered again. She helped me when no one else did. She wouldn't. Ashton didn't speak. He just stared at the screen. The next clip showed her meeting Nathan in a dark parking garage. Their voices were faint but audible. Nathan, once it's done, he'll be the villain. You'll get your cut. Maya, I want more than money. I want her gone. She took everything from me. Lila stumbled back, shaking her head. She was talking about me. She betrayed both of us, Ashton said quietly. The realization hit her like ice. Maya, her friend, her only ally during the chaos, had been feeding information to Nathan from the start. The next day, Lila called her. Maya, we need to talk. Maya's tone was casual. Hey, Lila, everything okay? I think you know the answer, Lila said coldly. Meet me. Now. They met at a small riverside cafe at dusk. The water rippled silver under the streetlights. Maya arrived wearing a red coat, looking unfazed. So, she said, sitting down, you found out. Why? Lila asked, voice trembling. After everything, why would you do it? Maya stirred her coffee, avoiding her eyes. You got lucky, Lila. You danced once, and suddenly the billionaire's yours. While I was still serving drinks to people who didn't even look at me. Lila's stomach twisted. You could have come with us. You didn't have to do this. You think I wanted to hurt you? Maya snapped. I just wanted to matter for once. But Nathan, he offered me everything I never had. Until you ruined it. Ashton stepped out from behind a nearby pillar. And now you'll answer for it. Maya froze. You set me up. No, he said. You set yourself up. She stood, eyes darting around. You don't get it. Nathan wasn't working alone. There's more coming. You think it's over? It's never over with your family. Before either of them could react, Maya tossed her coffee in Ashton's direction and bolted. Lila chased her into the alley behind the cafe. Rain poured again, thunder cracking overhead. Maya slipped on the slick pavement, turned back with wild eyes. "Stop!" Lila shouted. "It doesn't have to end like this." Maya hesitated just long enough for Ashton to catch up. But in that heartbeat, a black van screeched to a halt at the end of the alley. Two masked men jumped out, grabbed Maya, and dragged her inside before anyone could stop them. "Wait!" Lila screamed. The van roared away into the storm. Ashton pulled her back as she tried to run after it. "It's too late." She turned on him, furious and terrified. "They just took her." "She knew something we don't," he said. "And whoever's behind this doesn't want it getting out." Lightning flashed, illuminating the rain-soaked street. Lila shivered. "Victoria said we couldn't trust anyone." Ashton clenched his fists. "She was right. But now I need to know who's pulling the strings." He looked at the flash drive again, the one Victoria had given him, and something in his gut told him the game wasn't over. It had only just begun. The city didn't sleep that night. Storm clouds hung low, and every flash of lightning made the skyline look like it was on fire. Lila sat on the edge of Ashton's couch, her hands clasped, the flash drive glowing faintly on the table between them. Neither of them had spoken for nearly an hour. Finally, Ashton stood. "We're not waiting anymore. Whoever took Maya, they wanted to erase her. That means she knew who's behind all of this." Lila looked up. "But where do we even start?" He picked up the flash drive. "We start with what she said. It's never over with your family." She meant someone still inside the Veil legacy. He opened a file folder on his laptop. Names filled the screen: shareholders, partners, board members. All the ones who'd disappeared or gone silent since the scandal. Lila pointed to a name near the top. "Victor Crow, Nathan's uncle. He used to work with your father." Ashton's eyes narrowed. "Until he was cut out of the company. Right before my father's death." Pattern clicked into place. He had motive, access, and someone like Nathan to do his dirty work. He grabbed his coat. "If Maya's alive, she's with him." They drove through the storm to the city's edge, where the old Veil shipping warehouses sat abandoned. Rain lashed the windshield as the car's headlights cut through the fog. The building loomed ahead, tall, silent, half swallowed by the storm. Ashton killed the lights and they stepped out. Lila's voice was barely a whisper. "You sure about this?" He gave a grim nod. "No, but I'm sure about you." Her pulse jumped at that. They slipped inside through a broken side door. The air was thick with dust and the smell of rust. Somewhere deeper inside, faint voices echoed. Lila followed the sound. Around the corner, through a flicker of lightning through a shattered window, she saw Maya, tied to a chair, soaked but breathing. And standing over her was Victor Crow. He was older than Ashton remembered, his hair gray, but his posture sharp, precise, commanding. "So you finally came," Victor said when Ashton stepped into view. "Just like your father did when I warned him not to cross me." "You ruined everything," Ashton said. "The company, the family, the lives that depended on it." Victor smiled coldly. "Your father deserved worse. He stole what was mine. The Veil Empire should have been ours. But you're just a shadow of him." Lila stepped forward. "You used Maya. You used everyone." Victor shrugged. "Tools are meant to be used. She wanted recognition. I gave it to her." Maya lifted her head weakly. "I didn't know what he'd do." Ashton's jaw tightened. "You helped destroy me." "I thought he'd just take the company back," Maya whispered. "Not kill people to do it." Lila's heart froze. "Kill?" Victor turned sharply. "Shut up." But it was too late. Maya spoke again, louder this time. "He killed your father, Ashton. Made it look like a heart attack. He said it was justice." Ashton lunged, but Victor pulled a gun from his coat. The metallic click echoed in the warehouse. "Enough," Victor said. "You're just like him, always thinking you're the hero. You want the truth? The Veil Empire wasn't built on honor. It was built on lies. And you're about to die with them." Lila stepped in front of Ashton without thinking. "If you want him, you go through me." Victor laughed softly. "How noble." The waitress who thinks she's a queen. Lightning flashed, and in that second Ashton moved. He knocked the gun aside. It fired, the sound deafening. The bullet tore through a crate, sparks flying. Lila grabbed a metal rod from the floor and swung, striking Victor's arm. The gun clattered to the ground. Ashton tackled him. They hit the floor hard, trading blows. Rage, grief, and years of betrayal colliding in one brutal moment. Lila ran to Maya, untying the ropes. "Go! Get out!" But Maya shook her head. "No, he needs this." Victor slammed Ashton into a pillar, grabbed a shard of broken glass, and held it to his throat. "Your father begged before he died. Will you?" Ashton glared back, blood on his lip. "Never." Then a voice cut through the rain. "Drop it." It was the police. Red and blue lights flashed through the cracks in the walls. Victor turned, distracted for just a second. Enough time for Ashton to twist free and knock him out cold with one final punch. The officers swarmed in, weapons drawn. An hour later, Victor Crow was in handcuffs. Maya was taken to the hospital for questioning. And Ashton stood outside the warehouse, soaked, exhausted, but free. Lila came up beside him. "It's over." He looked at her, and for the first time in years, his eyes were calm. "No, it's just beginning." She smiled faintly. "Then what now?" He took her hand. "Now we build something that isn't built on lies." Months later, the city skyline gleamed with new lights. The Vale Foundation had been reborn, not as a corporation, but as a charity for struggling artists and workers. Ashton stepped onto the stage at the grand opening, the crowd cheering. Lila stood beside him, radiant in a silver dress, holding the mic. She spoke first. "Once upon a time, someone dared me to dance. And I did. But what I didn't know was that one dance could change everything. Not just for me, but for all of us who were told we weren't enough." The audience erupted in applause. Ashton smiled at her like she was the only person in the room. After the ceremony, they stood alone on the balcony overlooking the city. "You still owe me a dance," he said quietly. She laughed. "After all that, you're still arrogant." He grinned. "Maybe, but this time, I'll follow your lead." She took his hand, and under the soft glow of city lights, they danced slow, steady, and finally free. The music swelled, and for the first time since that night in the ballroom, the world felt right again. Because the arrogant millionaire had learned humility, and the waitress who stole the spotlight had stolen his heart too.